Hey, it's Josie. Long time no see. I used to post videos back in the day. I've always had a passion for making videos. I think that's for a reason. I feel like that was a God-planted thing, but I never found my footing or grounding with it. I never really fed that passion, and that's definitely something I want to do now. I've been riddled with perfectionism my whole life, which I'm sure I'll talk about more in this video. And I have debated ever since becoming a Christian for like a year and a half now on making like a testimony video. I was waiting for the right time or when it felt right. If you don't have a perfectionism brain, you're probably thinking there's no such thing, like the time is now. This is something that God is currently walking me through, that whole journey of unlearning and unbelieving the lies of perfectionism. So with that, I wanted to do a video. My setup isn't perfect. I'm filming on my iPad. My house is, I don't have the perfect setup. I'm not using a mic, I'm not using lights. I just wanted to get the video out there because I feel like if one person's gonna watch it, if 10 people are gonna watch it, 100 people, I don't care. I want to share my story to hopefully help someone who is going through a similar process as me, and also I want to be that person for someone who I needed. I would have loved to have someone who looked like me or had my story to help me. So I'm really hoping this can help at least one person, and I hope you walk away feeling blessed and encouraged and on fire for the Lord, because that's how I'm feeling right now, baby. I took some time before this, ate a good meal, took a shower, cried, worshiped, prayed, God, please let it be your will, your words, not mine, because I don't want to stutter. I don't want to blank out. I don't want to be uncomfortable, discouraged. I just want all glory to be, because me, I ain't nothing. I'm just a scared, insecure lady, but I have the Spirit of the Lord living in me, so hopefully that is what is portrayed today. Yeah, without further ado, I guess this is my journey with Jesus, my official testimony video. I'm sure a lot of people are taken aback by this. I know I would be if you told me a year before becoming a Christian that I would be going to church and posting about Jesus. I would have called you a lunatic. So isn't that how God works? Enough with the rambling though. Let's get into it. Actually, we're not done rambling. I want to make a disclaimer that this is my story. I feel like every time I post something about reflecting on my past self, my past behaviors, my past choices, and just talking about the change that God has done in my life, there's always a person or two who have a problem with what I say and how I say it, just because XYZ didn't work for you, or just because you are not doing this doesn't mean it's wrong of someone else. This isn't me condemning, bashing anyone's lifestyle or choices. This is just me reflecting on my life. If you feel some type of way about that, that's not for me. That's between you and God. This is just my story. And if you have an issue with that, I'm sorry. I'm new to my faith still. I'm still learning a bunch. I am also just a human. So give me some grace, please. I guess let's start with my childhood and my upbringing. I was raised going to church, but it wasn't like this crazy strict Christian household. There definitely was a lot of dysfunction and chaos, young parents just doing the thing for the first time, figuring it out. Of course, my parents have a lot of impact on my life, but I don't want to go into like all of my trauma and my lore in one video. I want to try to keep it as cut and dry and stay more focused on how God changed my life. I just hit my steps by talking with my hands so much, not the trauma that formed the way that hopefully in future videos we can talk more about more lore, but for now let's just keep it try to keep it simple, because I know this is going to be long. There was somewhat of a belief growing up. I always felt somewhat spiritually connected. I loved going to church when I was younger. I loved the vision and the idea of angels. I still do. I love angels so much. I think after my parents got divorced, that caused even more disruption in the household and a lot of just like fending for myself, kind of. Not that my moms weren't impactful in my upbringing, but I was very much in my head, in my own world. I think upon reflection, I think it was just a form of protection for myself. Isolated, even if I was involved, I was very much like a daydreamer. My mom always told me that I was in like a fairy living my own fantasy when I was younger, and I think, like I said, upon reflection, it was a form of protection because I just constantly went inward. I think that's carried on my whole life, and that's something God is heavily working on with me right now is being present, being with him, surrendering to him, and not going inward and trying to do everything myself. Let me not get too ahead. In that, I went on my own way. There was no force to go to church. There was no force to believe. It was talked about. Majority of my family are believers. Basically everyone in my upbringing was, but I went on my own way. I sought reassurance in drinking and smoking and men and boys and physical validation and all of the things. I would say I was leaning more towards atheist for a long time, but I still liked to practice new agey stuff. So I was really into tarot cards and crystals and all of the new age witchy spirituality stuff, but there was still something in me that felt so empty and I didn't believe. But that was further on. But I guess I liked rebelling. I felt like it gave me attention. People loved it. People loved that I was confident and outspoken and that I was quirky, and I really fed into that. I really thrived off of that. And that's not to say that was all an act. Like, I am genuinely just an outspoken, more unique individual, but I definitely, I think, played into that a lot because that filled a void for me for a while. I struggled with mental health issues basically my whole life. I think I was just a fearful and anxious child, but still had a free spirit. Yeah, I always struggled with anxiety, existential anxiety. Like, I was always afraid of my family dying or me dying, and I was just constantly self-aware and aware of like bad things in life, and was so fearful my whole life. I've just always been so fearful, and I think that carried on all throughout my whole life. It was just a recurring theme. I feel like mental health became my god. It was my idol. I was obsessed with it. Now, knowing more about mental health stuff, I definitely would say I have suffered with OCD, perfectionism. I've always been like obsessively counting in my head and had like hypochondria. I always thought like the worst case scenario about my health, and I think that was the root of my anxiety, was the fear-based obsessions that I had caused me to become anxious and afraid. I don't want to get super like mental health on this video either. Like I said, that can be a whole nother lore, but just to give you an idea of what I've really battled with my whole life has been fear. Like, that's just the simple root of it, and I think that's the simple root of a lot of people's issues, but I'm not here to tell you how to live. I'm just telling you how I lived. Fear ruled my life, and living in fear, it's really hard to be grateful, to have faith, to believe. Everything in the Christian world I was the opposite of, so no wonder I strayed from God my whole life, because the two don't comfortably coexist. You know, those are two opposites. But I thank God for everyone who has prayed for me my whole life. People who, I remember when I started speaking out about being a Christian, there were people that I went to high school with that said, you don't know, but like, I prayed for you. I've been praying for you, all of this. And then of course, like, my family and my siblings and so many people my whole life has prayed for me. Bruh, these two, you better act up. And thank God for them. Yeah, I wanted to acknowledge that I could not have gone on this journey alone, and it's by the grace of God and so much outpouring love and support, and people who never let me lose hope or lose faith, and that even when I would talk reckless or talk so crazy against God or hate on Christians and bash on Christians, these people still loved me and understood me and prayed for me, rather than turning away from me or shunning me. And I hate that. I know so many people who have church hurt or bad experiences with Jesus because of how other people treated them, and I'm so fortunate that that's not my experience. Like I said, I was fully living for the world all throughout. It started in middle school when Snapchat became a thing and I could send photos to boys and get validation that way. I quickly found out what could give me the most attention through social media and for men, and that involved going to parties and drinking and smoking, even though every time I smoked weed, I absolutely hated it. I mean, there were years, guys, this is so embarrassing, and I don't need to share this, but I'm gonna share it, where like I would smoke with people and I didn't want to get high, but I so badly wanted to be in these spaces with people that I would smoke. I got incredibly good at faking inhaling, so like I wouldn't get high. But there were a few times where I would get high and I would absolutely freak out and lose my mind because I hate feeling out of body. I hate the feeling of being high. I cannot stand it. But I would go like on and off smoking pot for years. Like there were some years I would go like 2-3 years in a row without smoking, but then eventually I would get like FOMO, or I would feel like if I was in the social setting where people were smoking and I didn't, I would be like, oh, I'm a freaking lame-o for not smoking, so I'm gonna get high. And I hated it. And this isn't to say that it was all peer pressure's fault. It was other people's fault. Like, I was at fault for the choices that I made and for, you know, the people that I surrounded myself with. And this isn't hating on anybody's lifestyle. This isn't hating on anybody. This is just me, like I said. Yeah, I was like a phony pothead. I loved like the hippie lifestyle. I still am very like holistic in a way, but I don't like getting high. I don't like feeling out of body. I like to feel on a 10, high performance all the time. And I think looking back, I've always wanted to live for the Lord. I've always wanted to strive and work hard and achieve these things and have a family, but I was so riddled with fear and FOMO and anxiety that I just wanted anything that would make me feel connected to people and anything to make me feel a part of something. And the quickest way to do that I found was doing the things that I did. And those are all quick voids. Sex was such a quick fill for me, a quick form of validation, a quick form of connection, partying, drinking, all of these things. And like I said, not hating on anyone's lifestyle. I think all of this, I temporarily loved what I was doing, but overall it was not fulfilling. And I think that's why my mental health was the way that it was, because I would feel better for a little bit doing these things, but then I would crash even harder and feel even worse reflecting on the decisions that I've made, the guys that I had sex with, the women that I had sex with, the lifestyle that I was living. It was never fulfilling for me. I kept seeking and all of these things that weren't feeding me. And it got even worse during COVID, because COVID hit during my year of graduation, 2020. So the year was just insane, and I was working full time. I was constantly surrounded by it. And of course, at this time, I'm struggling with my mental health, the fear, the OCD. I was obsessing over COVID and politics and all of these things for the first time, that I was just completely freaking lost. I started smoking weed again. I'm so sorry. And this time I was smoking it for real, but I was freaking out. Like every time I would smoke weed and get high, I would freak out, but I'd be like, this is the only thing. Like, this is the only thing that I have. Absolutely. And I don't think I went a day sober for like 6 months straight. I was doing something, smoking, drinking, something during COVID to feel better. I just got so far into that. I eventually put myself in counseling though, because I was just like, this is too much. Like, I don't know what to do. The only thing I know how to do is go to counseling. Got put on medication again. This counselor specifically was an addiction counselor, and at the time it was all I knew, so I thought my counselor was yet again like my God. Like, she was helping me through so much, or I thought she was. And this isn't to diss on her. I just don't think if you're not specialized in OCD, normal therapy can worsen OCD, because it's like a validation seeking thing, a reassurance seeking thing, and it was just a perpetual cycle. Yes, counseling did teach me a lot of like emotional maturity, and it helped me in a lot of ways, but I also think it equally hurt me, because it kept me in these cycles of needing reassurance and constantly self-diagnosing and all of this. It was just a mess. Like the year of 2020 till literally getting saved, I was just a freaking mess, a hot freaking mess. I was grasping at literally everything I would get. I had books upon books of self-help and new age stuff, and I was doing anything to help and to heal and to feel better. It was only a matter of time to where that just, I couldn't sustain it anymore. And I think my full come to Jesus moment, and like I said, I'm keeping this very vague. Like, I could have hours of story times of the life that I was living and the decisions that I was making and everything, but I don't feel like I need to sit here and note every wrongdoing that I've done and go into all the lore. I can tell you I was riddled with just lies and fears and doubts. The enemy was on my butt, because this guy knew, this little loser knew But I was about to be on fire for the Lord. He knew. I think what started this was, and it's funny because like a month or so before my birthday, I had just gone to church for the first time in years. Keep in mind, I was going to church in and out, like middle school and high school. And I never fully wrote off the idea. And like, even when I was in the midst of like my atheist / new agey, I always said verbatim, I am not fully turned off to the idea of God. I just don't. There was just something in me that just couldn't let go. And that's that control, that need to be my own God. I wanted to do it all myself. I didn't want to have to depend. I didn't want to have to surrender. I didn't want to have to give up control. And isn't that what living for the Lord is? It was just this constant conflict. Like, gosh, I wanted to have faith in something. I wanted to believe so bad, but I couldn't surrender. A couple months before becoming a Christian, I had gone to church, and it was the church that I go to now. And there was like a lady guest speaker, and I remember it putting like kind of a good taste in my mouth that I was like, okay. But I still went in with like, oh, this is stupid. I hate this, blah, blah, blah. I used to be disgusting when it became to Christians, and everyone has their own experiences with Christianity. And I understand now when people question me or doubt me or give me crap, because I had the same opinions, I had the same views. I absolutely hated Christians and the idea of going to church or believing in God and all the things. I was so ignorant when it came to Jesus. I had gone to church and I didn't feel anything immediately, but I enjoyed it. I remember enjoying it. And there's always been glimpses throughout my life when I wasn't a believer where like I would seek him. My sister and her husband specifically are super devout, very faithful, have always prayed for me. Even when I was so ignorant and just lost in the sauce, they were always there for me. And there would be moments where like I would ask him biblical questions and I would just get so curious, and then I would text my friend about it or want to talk to someone about it, and they immediately were just shut off to it or turned off by it. And I was like, maybe they're right, like this isn't anything to get excited about, whatever. But there was always like glimpses of longing to know. I wanted to have faith. I wanted to believe in Jesus so bad, but I was just like, no, this is dumb. What am I doing? It was just this conflict constantly in my mind of wanting to believe, but there was a part of me that didn't want to, that was fighting it. I'm all over the place. I haven't been able to fully like sit down and talk about my story beginning to end, so I have a lot to say. It was my birthday of 2023. I turned 22, and I just remember it being such a depressing birthday. And I know there are plenty of people like this, but I get super depressed on my birthdays, or I got every year. I would get depressed because it would be such a joyful moment, and I just couldn't believe that people loved me. I couldn't believe that people cared for me. I thought it was an act. I thought it was fake. I felt so insignificant, and I had these lies and these thoughts just telling me like, you don't actually matter this much. These people don't actually care about you. Like, constantly get in my head. And every year when my birthday came around, I was anticipating that to happen, because it always has happened, where like people are celebrating me, but I feel so unworthy that I would get depressed in a moment where I felt like I should have been the happiest ever. And I put so much expectation to feel so happy on my birthday that I would inevitably feel like crap because I'm putting so much pressure on this thing. I just remember this year being terrible, and I just remember like leaving my birthday party after it being so good, crying, and the only thing I could focus on was that my dad didn't reach out to me this year. He didn't even text me. And I remember that like being so devastating for some reason. And I've never really got into my fatherly issues at the time, and I never broke down why that bothered me so much. But for some reason this year really struck a chord in me, and I just went down to depression. And I've dealt with depression my whole life. I had suicidal tendencies when I was younger, and upon reflection, a lot of it was, yes, there were moments where I didn't want to live anymore, but it wasn't even necessarily that I didn't want to live. I just didn't want to feel the bad. I wanted to escape it. We all want to escape. We all find a way to escape. This is not a profound individual story. I know everyone experiences this to some degree, but a lot of it was just a cry for help for me. Like, I knew, I think subconsciously, that if I were to self-harm my mom would care for me. If I was sick, that's when my mom nurtured me. When I wanted to kill myself was when I felt like my family saw me. And I know that's not true. Like, I know my mother's always loved me, and I know and my family's always loved me. Sorry, this is like really weird to talk about. For some reason, when I was younger and I was depressed, I only felt like my family would notice me if I didn't want to be alive anymore. God, this is so embarrassing. I don't want to be that person that's crying on camera. And these tweakers in the back, come on now, guys. Enemy, get out of here. I rebuke you in the name of Jesus. So that's something I've always struggled with, and thank God for his love. Hold on, let me stop crying for a second. Just remember, this birthday was like the worst one ever. And for like a couple weeks after that, I just was having such bad depression mixed with like existential anxiety and OCD where I couldn't stop thinking about death. I couldn't stop thinking about it. And it wasn't in this like, I wanted to die. I was just ruminating on how sad I was, which led me to think about dying, but I didn't want to die. It was just this hell in my mind. And I remember one day I was at work, and what I know it is now, I started to experience DPDR, like depersonalization, derealization, where I couldn't feel like I was in my body anymore. And it was like my body was, and my mind was hiding, protecting me, because I felt so unsafe. I felt so unsafe in myself. I felt so unsafe in life. I was so scared. And this just made that so much worse. And I remember getting in my car and I was like freaking out when I got off. And what I did, I smoked weed. I was smoking pot. I was like, this will help. When has smoking weed ever helped me? Never. Literally never. I was just like, I have nothing else. I didn't know what to do. And I remember I'm driving home. I'm panicking. Like, oh my God, what is this? Like, just absolutely losing it. And I get home and I break down and I'm freaking out, feeling like I'm losing my mind. Calling my mom. I'm like, Mom, you gotta get home. I'm like laying on the floor, listening to meditation, trying to read things to make me feel better. And it just wouldn't stop. If you've ever experienced DPDR before, you know what I'm talking about. If you haven't, it sounds weird or crazy, whatever. But it is just, now I know it's your body is like a defense mechanism, like fight, flight, or freeze. But your body gets stuck in survival mode and almost starts to not shut down, but you do start to shut down out of protection. But when you freak out, it makes it worse, and you keep triggering that like I'm unsafe feeling. And I didn't know any of this at the time, and I didn't know this until a few months ago, which I'll get into that. But I was experiencing that hardcore for the first time, and I had experienced bits of disassociation before, but that was like in the midst of my partying and drinking and smoking, so I didn't really feel it to the full degree as I did this time. And I remember the next day I had my mom take me to the hospital because I just needed someone to tell me that I was healthy, I was fine. But it gave me absolutely no reassurance, and everything just felt gray. Like, I remember being with my mom and just walking around feeling like dead. I couldn't eat. I feel like I couldn't talk. It was just terrible, terrifying, scary, just hell, literal torment. And they told me like everything's fine, but if these feelings persist, like you need to get grippy sock help, basically. And I was like, ain't no way, ain't doing this. There was still a part of me, even in this discomfort and feeling of unsafety, that knew that I didn't want that. I didn't want to be put in a hospital. I didn't want to be medicated. I didn't want to do these things. If I was going to go out the way that I thought I was, like if I'm dying, I'd rather just be home with my family and suffer that way. I don't want to suffer in a freaking hospital, which I know this all sounds wild, but if you have had mental health issues, then this probably isn't the first time you've heard this, or you've probably felt this, or whatever. But this is what's going on in my head. Like, if I'm actually losing my mind, I'd rather lose my mind with my family and just be here and try to live normally. So thank God for that. But with that tiny little mustard seed, I went to my sister's house, the one I was talking about earlier, her and her husband, and I didn't anticipate to talk about God, but I was just like, I'm so desperate. Anything. And we got to talking about God and what God says about me and what God says that I am, or who God says that I am. And I remember her husband telling me, Jordan, that the way that I look at people and nature and everything that I find to be so profound and beautiful, I did not think I was gonna cry this much. It's how God looks at me. And something broke. Something broke when he said that. And I was able to eat. And I still felt so confused and so lost, but I felt something break to where I was like, okay, I'm gonna do this. I don't care. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna live this life. I'm gonna do what I need to do to follow Jesus. If that's what God thinks about me, and that's what this book, the Bible, if that's what this book is saying, I'm gonna give it a chance. I had nothing to lose. I wasn't grounded in anything. I had no foundation. I had no sense of purpose or belonging. And I was like, why not? And I remember them taking me to a Wednesday night, just like worship night, which now I go all the time and they're never this wild, but God really turned up this day for me. I remember coming in for the first time, and as soon as they started singing and worshiping, I just lost it. I could not stop crying, and it was uncontrollable. Like, it just felt like years of pain was just being lifted off of me. Uncontrollable, just shuddering, dang near heaving, just crying so much. Baby, them devils were getting out of me. They fleed. And I remember my Pastor Matt, pointed me out and called me up. And people just surrounded me in prayer. And I've never felt a love like that before. And I know God was showing off. Like, he knew that if I was going to believe, he'd have to turn up. Because my heart was so hardened. My faith was absolutely destroyed. And I was just like, my sister was holding me, and I was just freaking weeping like a baby. And women were praying over me, speaking such beautiful things over me, speaking directly about things that they have no idea who I am. They have no idea. They don't know my story at all, but they read me to filth. And it was beautiful. And I remember I left that night and I posted on my story, God saved my life tonight. Ever since then, I've been on fire. And when I first made the drastic change, everyone thought I was crazy. Everyone thought I was manic. People were worried about me. They were making sure, like, oh, are you okay? This is concerning. And I understand, like, from an outsider's perspective, when people make sudden changes, I know from, like, a worldly perspective what that looks like. And so that fed my fear and anxiety even more. Like, yes, I was delivered from things, and I knew I wanted to live for Jesus, but I had so much, God had so much work to do in me. And so, yes, I was like, yeah, I'm doing this for Jesus, but I still was so anxious because of the reactions I was getting, but I still did what I needed to do. Got rid of everything. I completely cleared out my room, and I have clips of that. I don't know if I'll share that or not, but it was just a really hard time. I mean, I was breaking down. I'm like, I know this is right, but it feels so hard because I was so attached to things, and my identity was so rooted in these things because I just wanted to feel a sense of connection. I wanted to feel a sense of something fulfilling. I was getting rid of all of this stuff, and I knew my life was about to change so much, and it was scary, and I was mourning that almost. But yeah, I ended up getting a new job because at the time I was working at like new agey, like witchy spiritual store, and I love all those girlies still. Wasn't the best ending, but I was just doing things that I knew I needed to do to turn my life around for the way that I wanted it to go. I was on fire for God. I was going to church 2 to 3 times a week, and God was really doing a work in my life. I was still in and out of feeling like that disconnected, like DPDR feeling, but I never lost hope. I never lost faith. I think the perfectionist in me still, like I said, God still had a lot of work to do in me. I was trying to white knuckle a lot of things, which you just can't do. You can't white knuckle your way through faith. That's why we need Jesus. And I was still trying to be in control, but you know, there was so much I had to unlearn. I got distracted really quickly. I thought, oh, I have Jesus now. Like, I can go back to doing worldly things and I'll be fine because I have Jesus. And a lot of people warned me otherwise. But I instantly started entertaining guys. I got like a Christian dating app because I thought that would be different. I ended up getting in a relationship, and I don't need to get into the lore of all of that. But if you know, you know. That's all I'm gonna say. And then the year following was just I really put my faith to the test this whole past year and I'm finally coming out of that just within the past couple months. So like I said, God is still working on me. Maybe it's a journey, it's a whole life journey. But I feel so deeply rooted in him now, which is why I feel comfortable making this video. I ended up getting baptized, which I will insert that here.
We baptize you in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, in the name of the Lord Jesus Christ.
Well, Lord God, I just thank you for Josie. God, I thank you for the path that she has walked thus far, but I see a new path.
Such a beautiful experience. I love my church so much, and I will forever cherish that moment of my baptism. But at this point, I stopped going to counseling. I stopped taking medication. I weaned off the medication. I did everything properly. I knew that like my counselor, I loved her, but I couldn't do secular counseling anymore if I was going to have a counselor. Oh, I'm getting all over the place. Yes, new job. Sorry, I'm reading my notes now. New job, no counseling, no medication. Lost a lot of friends. Yes, I indeed lost a lot of friends just from proclaiming that I was a believer. I didn't even like set boundaries or say anything to a lot of people. It was just upon proclamation that it caused a lot of discomfort. Peace and love. I'm on my own path. They're on their own, and I've healed from a lot of that. And I have amazing friends now and support system and everything. Yeah, I feel like I just had to start over. So I got rid of a bunch. Okay, so yeah, the test I received the year following, definitely a lot in the relationship. Some severe health stuff came up. Like I said, I'm not getting to a lot of the lore. I was unlearning a lot still. Like, yes, I believed in God, but I still was behaving out of a place of parental issues, insecurity, fear, perfectionism. Like that just didn't go away overnight. A lot of things did, like a lot of habits broke, like a lot of my OCD counting, like I would constantly count. Like when I was talking, I would count on my fingers, I would count in my head. I would re-say sentences back from other people or from what I was saying until it felt just right. Certain physical things stopped. Drinking, smoking, physical habits, those all literally overnight stopped. But there were still the beliefs and the thoughts behind them still lingered, because now I know like the problem isn't the problem. You can physically stop doing something, but the belief that led you to do that is still there. And so I was walking that out with God, and I still am, of course. So there's a lot of tests, a lot of new things, moving out from living with my mom, getting in a relationship. It was a little messy, we'll just say that. I don't want to slander anything, I don't want to give drama, whatever, but putting my attention where my attention did not need to be. Legal stuff, which I have not talked about this with really anybody. I haven't posted about anything. Not a lot of people know. I'm still going through it, but we are seeing the light at the end of the tunnel of this situation. I was leaving church one night with my sister, and I got pulled over for either a headlight or a taillight. I still don't know which one it was. I'm pretty sure it was a headlight, but my sister says tail light. I don't know. Whatever. It was a light. Wasn't speeding. This is my first time ever getting pulled over. Never had a ticket. Never been pulled over. Never, nothing. First time getting pulled over. And they check our license. Everything's normal. There's no suspicion at all. Granted, their suspicion was right, but for them to have suspicion, we still don't know to this day. People say it was a little bit of profiling because of my piercings and my tattoos and the stickers on my car, but I'm not trying to pull, like, they profiled me, you know, like, maybe they did, but I can't really do anything about it now, and God turns everything around for good. But they brought out dogs, and then they searched my car. But they asked before they searched my car if I had anything, and I gave them what I had, which was a little bit of weed, which wasn't the problem. I had shrooms. Keep in mind, it was less than a gram. They were little microdose shrooms that I had just started BC because of, like, my anxiety and depression, and I was really into holistic stuff and new agey stuff. And so in that realm, marijuana and shrooms are just like taking freaking Tylenol and Benadryl. So I had just started, like, literally tried them less than a handful of times. I would take, like, a microdose and go to yoga. I would take a microdose and go to work, like, whatever. I wasn't even feeling anything. I would just take them because I wanted to see if it would help with my anxiety. Like I said, I was riddled with it, baby. So I was like, yeah, maybe shrooms will help. So I never got rid of them, which is on me. But at this time, I had been sober for, like, a month or two, and I had no intentions on ever doing that again because, like I said, smoking pot gave me so much anxiety, and I don't like to feel out of my body. But I was just, I guess, I forgot holding onto it. I don't know. I can't change anything now. But I handed it over. They let my sister get back on the car, but I had to stand on the curb in the winter time while they're tearing at my car. And then they bring them over to me, like, what are these? I tell them, the microdose shrooms, whatever, and they're like, do you know why they're illegal? Blah, blah, blah. You need to get better friends. I was like, sir, little do you know, I have no friends because I just became a Christian and I'm turning my life around and nobody wants to be my friend. Whatever. And they let me go. There's no ticket, no nothing. They're just like, hey, we're going to send this off to get tested. You may or may not hear back from us. Like, it was very chill, very nonchalant, very, like, whatever. 2, 3, 4 months go by. I don't even think about it anymore. Like, it's not even a thought in the back of my mind. Like, I've completely removed myself from that event. I'm just like, oh, whatever. Like, they probably aren't going to say anything about it. And at the time, I didn't know the offense of shrooms. Like, I thought it was just going to be like, oh, why would they even care about shrooms when there's, like, murder, rape, gangbang, like, there's things going on in the world. They're not going to care about some young girl who had, like, less than a gram of shrooms. Nope, wrong. 8 months later, your girl comes home from church, which, little backstory about that, I was sick this day, and we went to CVS after church so that I could get some, like, hardcore meds to make me feel better. And they, like, ID'd me at the pharmacy, and something went wrong when they first scanned it. And I was like, oh my gosh, guys, we're gonna find out that I'm a felon today. And guess what? F1 felony charge. Yeah, so I come home, I go upstairs, and this is right before I'm about to move out. And I can hear my family whispering downstairs, and I'm, like, talking my crap upstairs, like, why are you guys whispering about me, blah, blah, blah. And they're like, if you would just come downstairs, we could talk about it. So my mom gives me the papers. I mean, literally a foreign language to me. I've never been in any legal trouble. None of this makes sense. I'm like, what are you telling me right now? Like, can someone just explain this to me? Because what I'm reading makes no sense. You're being faced with a felony charge. You're on bond. And basically, if you had any record previously, you'd be going to jail. I'd be in jail, guys. I'd be in jail. Okay, but glory be, because I'm not, and I didn't go to jail. But I was not playing with this. There's no way. I couldn't sleep. I'm like, no, I have a felony charge over my head. We started the process the next day. I went to the courthouse, literally got a mugshot, got my fingerprints. Me and my sister, who was, like, the most straight edge, love her to death. But, like, this lady, meet her in the courthouse, a sight to see. I think I have a picture of it. I have to make light and laugh at this situation because, like, for one, it's already done and over with, and two, like, I can't change it. We ever doing all the things. Long story short, I get put on bond, which is basically probation without an ankle monitor. So I have to get drug tested every week. I have to have curfew, have all of these rules I have to follow, not allowed to stay the night anywhere, not allowed to travel without, like, all of these different things. To do that for a couple months until my court hearing. And at the time, they're like, we don't know when your court hearing is. It could be 3 months, it could be a year, it could be 2 years. Like, it really just depends. What? You can't tell me when? Started a new job. I'm about to move out, so if this is on my record, whatever. I'm thinking of all the worst case scenarios, of course. Not trusting God. Finally had my court hearing. They put me on ILC, which is in lieu of your conviction. So basically doing what I'm doing already. I have to do regular counseling, group counseling, 2 NA or AA meetings a week, and then reporting with my probation officer. 5 days a week. I have to commit time to this thing, which I'm not gonna talk crap about. I'm just letting you know the things that were going on in my life. So new move, conflicting relationship, still dealing with mental health things that I'm avoiding and distracting myself still, legal trouble, and then of course I work at Starbucks, so the stress of that. And then I went through health problems to where I was, to keep it tame, I was bleeding out for just about a month straight. My levels were so low. They were talking about getting a transfusion. A lot of stuff happened. So then I went back into like an OCD flare-up, worse than before. It was completely hell, torment. All I could think about was whether I should be in this relationship or not. And then I was thinking of every bad thing in my life. And then the doubt of God came in. Well, if God's real, then why this? And then that led me down an existential spiral of like life and death and what's true and what's real and what's not, and just this. And then the DPDR kicked in like I had never experienced before. Every waking moment I was like, I'm not real, this isn't real. I would be with my family and feel so disconnected, and I would be like, they're all gonna die. Just like everything that I have struggled with my whole life on 1,000 for like 4 months straight. And when I tell you, okay, I'm gonna have to pause. First of all, I didn't realize I was yapping for almost an hour, so hopefully I can edit this down a little bit so that it's not a 2-hour freaking long video of me talking about my life. But my roommate just got home, so I'm gonna pause, and I have to go to my niece's basketball game, so I will try my best to pick this back up tomorrow. So the next clip I will look different, but yeah, let's go. Hey, we back. It's a few days later. It's Sunday, so I just got home from church not too long ago. I'm in my comfy clothes, and I wanted to finish the story time because I feel like I left off on a cliffhanger, and I had watched it back and started editing, and I feel like I was fidgeting and messing with my hair and just doing a ton the whole time, so hopefully that wasn't too distracting. But yeah, I left off on like where my mental health went really south again, and that was like my real wake-up call. Like my first come to Jesus moment was a wake-up call, but I was still in denial, holding on to control, distracting myself, like still filling voids inappropriately. And after that year of just like multiple tests and just like having a lot of first experiences and just doing things for the first time and having a lot of like realizations and just all of these trials and everything, it really highlighted everything that I had been avoiding and not giving over and not surrendering to Jesus. And it just like I had no choice but to fully surrender and let God do his work in me. And so I started a fast, like a social media fast, and I fasted everything secular, committed so much more time to Jesus, and just refilled my mind and gently redirected all my thoughts to him in my life, just surrounded in him. And it was just like a fresh new walk. And ever since then, like I'm still walking that out now, but my life is so completely different. I have like my whole identity, I feel like, is renewed in him, which has been weird. It's been a kind of a surreal process of really truly letting an old identity die and becoming new creation in Christ. And I know like everyone says that and it sounds corny, and until you have that experience, you don't really know until you know what I'm talking about, where you have no choice but to just let it down or put it down and just let God move in your life. And that's kind of where I'm at now. I'm finally seeing some fruit of that and feeling the peace of that and the love from that and the joy. Jesus's joy is my medicine. And I say that now and I think about it now, like joy is my medicine. He's done a lot of healing in me. I feel like ever since believing in God and living for God, there's been way more trials than ever, but I have a new faith and a new strength that I never thought would be possible, and it's made all of it much more sustainable and able to go through with all the people in my life as well. Like, I'm truly so thankful and so blessed. There are no words. It's just living it out and appreciating it every moment that I have, and just being so thankful in it, and really just resting in that this is like the peace and the life that I've longed for ever since I was a child. So every moment I'm just insanely grateful. I just wanted to end on saying that, like, suffering and being purified is not easy, and it's not fun. And it's when you hear testimony videos or you talk to people and they tell their story in brief, you don't realize, like, story doesn't encapsulate the feelings and just what it actually was like. And I'm learning that the purification, there's like a whole sharpening process, and you hear it and you don't really understand until you go through it. And that's kind of where I'm at now, where I'm like, oh, I get it. Like, I get the surrender, and I get the dying to the self. I get the picking up the cross and everything. And I'm sure I will continue to be reminded of it and go through many trials for the rest of my life. But I feel like this past year just really was such a learning experience and such a growing experience. Just connected me so much deeper to the people around me and to God, and just to life itself. I feel more connected. I know that this is the impact that I needed to keep going. And I just wanted to get my testimony out there. And I'm sure when I want to call this like my digital diary, and the more that I post, whether it's just pictures or videos or whatever I decide to do, I'm not trying to put a lot of pressure and control on it. Kind of just post what I want, lifestyle, talks, Bible studies, whatever. I don't have the full vision yet, but it's getting clearer and clearer. I think just doing. I read this thing yesterday. I'm going to put it on here. It was a whole post within itself, but the thing that I got from it said, perfectionism is procrastination masquerading as quality control. And that really spoke to me, and it was a great reminder that, like, there is no perfect time to start. There's no perfect time. There'll never be a point where I'm like at my peak when it's time to start going. Like, I just need to start now. So that's kind of where I'm at, where it's like I just want to go. I just want to post. I want to travel. I want to be so enveloped in life and share it when I can. And so this is the start of that, and I hope that this reaches one person, anybody. And feel free to, like, respond in the comments or tell me your story, or what part resonated with you, or if you got anything from this, and let me know. Hope you guys enjoyed, and if you have any ideas of, like, if there's any, like, story times you want me to go deeper into, anything more that you want to know, let me know. If there's anything you want to see me do content wise, let me know. Bye.